Hello everyone, and welcome to my deck profile for the GOAT Format Europe Slifer Special All-for-One Tournament. I placed in the top 4, well, I placed 4th, and I just thought I'd show you guys some of the strategies, and namely my strategy for the tournament. It was a lot of fun, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. It was an interesting format, a lot of close games. The one con of it is it's very swingy. If you draw bad cards, and you do have to play some bad cards in this format, you're gonna lose. Some of the rules for the tournament, let's go over them really quick. Basically, you have to play a monster of every type, and you cannot play any burn, spell, or trap cards besides ring. Your extra deck also cannot have more than one monster of a given type. And when side decking, if you take a monster out, you have to put a monster back in your deck that has the same type. So you can't just side into good cards. You have to side into other bad cards. But it was fun. It was fun. Also, no alt-win strategies were allowed. I forget how many people were in the tournament. I think it was over 16. So I'm going to go card by card here, focusing mostly on the monsters. Because most of the spells and traps you're going to be playing are just going to be staples, because you have to play 20 monsters. In GOAT format, at the time, there's 20 different types, which isn't the best ratio for a deck, of course. And there's a lot of really good staple spells and traps, so you don't really have a whole lot of wiggle room to do anything there. So we'll just start right off with probably the most obvious pick for your deck, which is going to be Warrior, and you're going to want to go with BLS. That's what I chose. I did see one player did something that was kind of interesting. They actually went for DD Warrior Lady in the spot. They did Return from the Different Dimension, and they would basically banish that DD Warrior Lady, and there'd be other cards that can get banished as well. But then he'd bring him back with Return from a Different Dimension. And I played this guy, and I think he actually won a duel because of this card. So I can't really knock that strategy, but I think BLS is the way to go. And then the fairy spot, we have Air Knight Parshath. So as you can see, I'm kind of going with the Monarch strategy, and this is kind of one of my Monarchs. A lot of people run things like Scapegoat, and kind of the meta for the monsters is 1800 attack. There's a lot of 1800 attack, or 16 to 1800 attack monsters that you have to play. So 1900 is actually pretty good. It hits over most of the monsters in the format, of course, besides the Monarchs and BLS. It worked out pretty well for me. Pretty satisfied with this pick. Other people played Asura Priest. Yeah, so for Beast, I think a lot of people also went Berserk Gorilla. I'd considered doing Giant Rat, and that was when I was originally running in my dinosaur spot, Hammerhead. And I think Hammerhead was definitely the right choice. I regret putting Elementsaurus in the deck, but we'll get to that in a second here. So Berserk Gorilla, 2000 attack, hits over all those 1600 to 1800 attack monsters. It's pretty good. And then in Beast Warrior spot, there are a couple picks here. Here people went for like Chiron, which, 1800 attack. I don't really like the 1800 attack because there's so many monsters that can crash with that card. You're not going to beat a whole lot of monsters with 1800 attack. And Chiron's ability is like, his effect, I don't know, not a big fan. And there's like Pitch Black Warwolf that you can also do, which I don't know. A lot of people run Sakuretsu armor, so, and there's some other traps like Scapegoat that they want to activate in the battle phase. That can kind of help there, but 1600 is not very good. And Katetsu works really well with my Snatch and my Premature Burial. Now that's only 2 targets, so that's kind of sketchy. Worked out really well for me in the tournament. I didn't run into a situation where I couldn't use his effect, although that was a definite possibility. But I think a lot of people want Katetsu, and I think that's the right play here. For Dragon, I didn't really see anybody else doing Twin-Headed Behemoth. It's nice. It's basically a guaranteed tribute for my Monarchs, so that's really, really good. Some of the other monsters people considered were, one monster in my side deck, and we'll get to my side deck. If you're looking at my side deck and you're like, I don't know if I want to take this guy's advice, like how did this guy do well with this deck, I have no idea, but we'll get to that. I'm just trying to have fun here, mostly, but it worked out pretty well. We'll get to that in a second. But we have Mirage Dragon, again, that's like Pitch Black Warwolf, but it's a light, which, there's not a whole lot of good lights to pick from, so a lot of people use this card for that reason. Behemoth is nice. level 3, I didn't really see anybody playing like Ladybug or Gravity Bind, but that could be like kind of an edge case where that applies. Some of the other dragon monsters were like Luster Dragon. That 1900 is pretty good in the format. It's pretty good. Let's pull up Dragon here. Let's see if there's any other ones that I forgot to mention. Nobody was playing Blue Eyes. Yeah, there's not really other good options at that spot. So for Dinosaur, it's kind of the same situation, but a lot worse. Here are all the Dinosaur options you have. Hammerhead, I think, is the move. The reason why I didn't play Hammerhead was because when I was playtesting, somebody told me that its effect does not resolve if it gets destroyed. And it turns out that's not the case. So mad at that guy, but I should have looked up the ruling. That's on me. So this is really good for any card. That it's a decent effect. Elementsaurus, we'll talk a little bit about this card. It is a dark. That's one thing it has over Hammerhead. It also has this really situational effect. But people are playing fire monsters. You got Kitetsu, although that doesn't really necessarily help there. Thessalos. So that fire attack sometimes can come into play. And then if there's an earth monster, that's actually a pretty good effect. Negate the effects of effect monsters destroyed by battle with this card. That's pretty good. Never came up for me, unfortunately. So yeah, probably don't play this card. 7-colored fish. You basically have to play seven-colored fish. If there's a poster boy for this format, it's this card. All the other fish monsters are garbage. They're really bad. So not a whole lot else to say about that. And then insect, I play Magical Merchant. A lot of people are playing like level 4 monsters, so I guess you could do Ladybug of Doom. I don't think I saw anybody playing this. This is also a funny card to play. Scorpion. But yeah, I also saw people playing Insect Knight, 1900 again, pretty good in the format. So it's not necessarily a bad pick. Merchant's just nice. It's a light. I'm using Premature Burial, Call of the Haunted, so it's kind of nice to mill cards for that. Although, if you mill that BLS is really important in this format. So if you mill him, there's nothing worse than doing that. Fiend, a lot of really good Fiend monsters, but you got to go Sangan. I'm not really going to get into the other Fiend monsters. A lot of other good options, though. Mystic Tomato. Everybody played Mystic Tomato. You can get Sangan and Reaper off of it, among other cards. So, no-brainer there. You could play Homunculus, I guess. It's 1800 attack, which I don't like, but it is a light. So if you need it, I guess you could do that. And Sea Serpent was kind of a interesting type to pick for. There are 2 cards you can pick here. You can go for the 1800 beater, or you can go for Kaiser Seahorse, which is a light, and most people want Kaiser Seahorse for that reason. Winged Beast, kind of a similar situation here. I went with Sacred Crane. Works well with my Call of the Haunted and Premature Burial. It's a light, which is nice. Some people played Harpy Lady, which has 1800, I think. So, kind of depends on your strategy there. I think this is the way to go, though. Spirit Reaper. A couple other people played, I think it's Regenerating Mummy, which is 1800 attack, and if it gets discarded, I think it goes back to the hand, which is alright, I guess, but Spirit Reaper is the way to go. It's also nice tribute fodder for my Monarchs. Cyberstein, I went for my machine. A lot of people went to Koichi, which is in my side. We'll get to that. This deck is kind of just explosive. It's very aggressive, so Cyberstein kind of fits that pretty well. Although in the tournament I did have some situations where I had Cyberstein, but my life points were below 5,000. So I don't know, it didn't work out too well for me. In playtesting, I got some wins off of it. But that's how it goes. Luck of the draw. For Aqua, we got Mobius. The obvious pick here is Tribe. I went Mobius. I think you can make an argument for either one. Tribe's a better card, of course. But actually, in this format specifically, Tribe can only eliminate one other monster, right? So it's kind of a 1-for-1. So there's more of an argument for Mobius because of that. Grand Marg, a lot of good rock monsters. People are playing Jar. I have Golem Sentry on my side. This actually won me a duel or two, so it worked out pretty well for me. Thunder is an interesting one. I have 2 Thunder monsters actually in my side. Zaborg's kind of the obvious pick. A lot of people pick Zaborg, but I'll get into some of the other Thunder monsters. There's actually a really cool pick, Sousa. 2,000 attack, really good in this tournament. It's an Earth, however, it's a Spirit monster, so it was used pretty successfully by a couple people, so that's not a bad pick. Yeah, we'll move on to Pyro. Thessalos is basically the only Pyro that's not really, really bad. Take a look at here. Well, actually, there's Blazing Impachi, and then you have Charcoal Impachi. 1850 is actually pretty good. It hits over all those 1800 attack monsters. Impachi, it's actually a decent floodgate, and not a lot of monsters can get over that. Also, it's a level 1, so if you want to use that for meta into Tear, that's not bad. Spellcaster. A lot of good spellcasters. Kind of a similar situation to Warrior. I went Tsukuyomi. I figured a lot of people are going to be playing Monarchs, and I think this card did really well in this tournament. Not a lot of people went with it. A lot of people went with Breaker or one of the other great spellcaster monsters. I have Demok in my side. I was pretty satisfied with how this card... I'm not even sure if I even used this card. I'm not even sure if it came up, but playtesting was good. A lot of people went Sinister Serpent for Reptile, which, it's a great card, but I don't have any cards that are going to discard stuff. It's nice to tribute for Monarchs, right? But that 1850 is just so nice. I actually won a duel in my last match. I ended up losing the match, but I won the duel because my opponent couldn't get over this card. So it's a good pick for me. Spells and Traps, pretty obvious. Mostly just staples here. Book of Moon for those Monarchs. Nobleman, of course. Brain, again, for the Monarchs. You got Heavy, yada, yada, yada. I am running Premature Burial and Call the Haunted. Not everybody's doing that. Most people are playing Call the Haunted, of course. And people who are playing Kotetsu are playing Premature Burial. I went 3 Solemn. Pretty much everybody else went with Sakuretsu Armor and Dust Shoot, which, might be the right play. I guess my reasoning for Solemn is just if everybody's playing Monarchs, right, and BLS is a huge factor. If they get a Monarch on the field, I'm not really worried about destroying it. I have plenty of cards that can get rid of those. Well, that's not necessarily true, but I have cards that can get rid of the Monarchs, right? What I'm more concerned about is their ability when it summons, and that's what these Solemns are for. So in that case, it's better than Sakuretsu Armor. Dust Shoot, really nice. There's a lot of bad monsters, so if you can send back one of the good monsters, stick them with those bad monsters, it's pretty decent. And your opponent's always going to have monsters in hand because there's so many of them. So I think I'll just kind of transition into... Well, I'm not even going to mention the extra deck. It's all the obvious ones. You're going to play Gatlin Dragon, and Machine, Tear, Master of Oz, etc. For my side, though, I wanted to have fun this tournament. It's not a very high stakes tournament. I think you get like a Raw ticket or something. If this is a World Championship invite, I'm not sure why that would be the case. But if that were the case, I probably wouldn't be using this as a side. But to be fair, a lot of everybody's pretty much playing the same or similar decks. There are a couple of rogue decks that I'll mention that were really neat. But we'll get to that at the end of this video. But this is just kind of fun. I basically side into a turbo deck, and I didn't think this would work. Like, when I started to playtest this, I was like, we're missing all these cards that you need to make a turbo deck work, right? You can't run 3 Magician of Faith. You can't run a bunch of Night Assailants to Koichis. But when I ran like a turbo lineup against my Monarch build, I won over 75% of the time. So I was like, hey, it's working. I'm gonna put that in my side. Basically, after I lose a duel, I'll side basically all these cards right here in, kind of throw my opponent off. I guess it worked out pretty well. Card destruction, I wish that was in my side. In playtesting, after I had to submit my deck list, right, and some playtesting after my deck list had been submitted kind of revealed to me that I definitely shouldn't be running this card. Again, there's just not enough good. I don't have the monster is required to make this a good play. It's very situational, and a lot of times it's just a -1, which sucks. We got the Upstart Goblins. I'm not sure if I played these either, because you draw a card and you draw like a 7-colored fish, right? It's almost better to have a powerful spell and trap, because you can only run 20 of them. So I kind of regret doing that. Break, Wind Blast, they have synergy with my Serpent, my Demok, etc. It's not bad to get a card in the grave for BLS either. I'll talk a little bit about why I'm playing 2 Thunder monsters in my side. Electric Snake did really well in playtesting. Everybody's running Thestalos and Reaper and Duo, right? So that's 3 cards at least that are going to be discarding from my hand. So at some point in the game, if this card's in my hand, it's gonna be a pot of greed for me. But if you draw it late, that's obviously not good. If they've already used their Duo, they don't have a Thestalos or Spirit Reaper, it's a brick. Yeah, Tribe, pretty self-explanatory. Golem Sentry is really good in this tournament. 1800 defense. A lot of the monsters are 1800 or less attack. So it's actually pretty hard to get rid of this card. So yeah, I was pretty satisfied with how this played out. Charcoal and Pachi. So this is in here. Obviously, if I'm going in a turbo strategy, I want some floodgates. I want to be able to kind of extend the game a bit. And 2100 defense is really good. And it has a really cool combo with one specific card, and that's Element Saurus. And in my last duel, I was so excited because I drew Element Saurus and I drew Impachi, and I set the Impachi. My opponent attacks into it with Breaker, loses some life points. Boom! I drop Saurus on the field, goes up to 2000 attack. My opponent has 1 set card, but I'm like, it's not a big deal. If they have Mirror Force, they're only getting my Saurus, and I have BLS in hand. And I already have a Light in the Grave. So that was kind of the situation. So I was like, that's fine. Most of the cards, it's not really going to be an issue. But my opponent had the one perfect out. They had Ring, and they ringed my Impachi, which causes Saurus to go down to 1500. He still runs into the Breaker, gets destroyed. Next turn, my opponent uses Premature Burial on the 7-colored fish, which I duoed. I used Duo. First turn, I got 7-colored fish. Actually, I hit the Serpent. out of his hand, and then he threw the 7-colored fish away, which then he used Premature Burial on to get him on the field, summon a Luster Dragon, attack for a whole bunch of damage, and I ended up losing the duel because later in the game when I got Premature Burial, I think I had like 400 life points. So that was brutal. Very close game though. Could have made it further in the tournament, but that's the way she goes. I lost to TK Griffiths. I think he ended up losing to Bobby Buckets later on in the next match. I also lost to Bobby Buckets. Some of the other cards here. Got Dekoichi, of course. Serpent, of course. And the Creator. This is just a fun card. I mean, it's a fun card. We got Electric Snake or Creator. So I kind of have to make a decision in side decking. Which one do I go with? If I see my opponent has Thestalos, they have Reaper, I'm probably going to go Snake. But if I see my opponent has Seahorse, I might actually go for Creator, because they have this cool synergy where it's treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a light monster. So it's perfect. And if my opponent has one, I could Brain Control it and summon it for the Creator, and then boom, that's pretty much game over there. Get a powerful monster from the grave. Never got to use it. I drew it in my last duel. It was kind of sad. Did pretty well in playtesting. It's a cool card though. It works well with my DMOC, of course. Same thing with these 2 right here. And then my remaining 2, Dragon is just kind of a card that I wasn't, I side this in for Behemoth because I don't necessarily need the tribute as badly when I switch to Turbo. And Breaker is good depending on the opponent's spell trap lineups. Everybody was running like Scapegoat though, I felt. So a lot of like reactive spell traps. So Breaker I don't think is the right pick for Spellcaster. I think Tsukuyomi is the way to go. So that's kind of it for this deck profile. So a little bit about some of the other strategies I saw. Most people were just playing generic good stuff. which is probably the way to go, right? But I saw one strategy in particular that I thought was really, really neat. Basically, somebody, I'm not sure who this was, but for all these monsters, they ran all like really strong tribute monsters. And I think they had like 60 cards in their deck. Actually, I should talk a little bit about the deck size, because I think running more than 40 isn't that bad in this format, just because the ratio is so bad. So I saw a couple people run more than 40, but this guy ran like 60 cards, and I forget the name of the trap. Level Conversion Lab. So he'd set this card, and then basically when you play it, you have a chance to make a monster in your hand a lower level, and then you can get like some ridiculous cards on the field, like, you know, what is it, Yamada Dragon, the powerful spirit ones. I saw in the replay. Yeah, there's a couple cool targets for that. That person, I think, won a couple games, ended up losing. There's generic good stuff. But yeah, that was probably the most interesting deck I saw. And if you have any thoughts on my deck, and you know, you think, wow, you really shouldn't have played this card, or you should have played this card, let me know. I'm kind of interested to hear everybody else's thoughts on the subject. I hope some other people come up with deck profiles, because I thought this format was really neat. I'd really like to see more of that. Yeah, and if you want to check out one of these tournaments in the future, this is the GOAT Format Europe Discord server. And they have these special tournaments every once in a while with like special sets of rules. And they're a lot of fun, so you should check that out. If maybe you're burned out on GOAT. You're sick of losing to or playing with Turbo and Warriors every game. And I'm over here just running Gravekeeper Monarch every game. Not doing too well. Anyway, that's, I think, the end of the video. Yeah, like and subscribe. Not sure if I'm going to make another video on this channel. I think the last video on this channel was like, you know, when I was a child. So I don't know, I have been considering doing a progression series, but with a twist. Since nobody else is doing that, there's only one progression series. Nobody else has copied that idea and altered it very slightly. Nobody's done that, so I think I might take a shot at that. So I'm actually looking for a partner for that. So if you're a charismatic individual, or you know somebody who might be interested, hit me up in the comments or via DM or something. Let me know. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think I have a pretty cool twist for it. I think it'd be a cool series. So let me know. I'm gonna finish rambling here. Hopefully this deck profile wasn't too long. I'll see you guys later. Thanks.